Ready?
That'll wake you up. All right. You're going to do all the questioning, right? Who do you start with? Jonathan?
Sure, we'll start with Jonathan. Jonathan, can you tell us your name and your role?
Yeah, my name is Jonathan Clevenger. I'm a Senior Director for Clinical Services for Inpatient Medicine and our Clinical Trials Program.
Cool, and that helps us know what to write on the thing. Ava, you want to tell us your name and your role?
My name is Ava Tan, and I am the Patient Care Manager of Unit C3, General Medicine.
And Ava, what are you doing for Halloween?
For Halloween, my children and I are going to go trick-or-treating with 10 other children under the age of 5.
Amazing.
So it's going to be a treat.
What are they going as?
A minion, or minions.
Minions.
Oh, they are going as minions.
They are going as minions.
That'd be fun.
Okay.
Jonathan, how about you?
I don't have any Halloween plans yet. I still have to get my outfit and my costume planned. So we'll see where that lands.
And since Halloween is on Friday, are you guys dressing up
Oh, no.
at work? No.
No, we are not dressing up at work.
Sounds good. Okay. How are we feeling? Loose?
Better. I mean, it's interesting because looking at both cameras and then trying to remember the questions, but I
Don't
think
look
the
at the
practice
cameras.
round. Yeah.
Yep. Pretend the cameras aren't there.
Okay.
Just look at me.
Yeah, and at this point, when she asks the questions,
Yeah.
just answer them. Don't
Okay.
worry, it's not a quiz or a test where you have to get the right answer. It's
Okay.
just let it flow
Okay.
from.
Jonathan, can you tell us how you see your role as director? And the direction that we're trying to go is like, what kinds of big things do you do? Is it about the day-to-day work? Is it about developing people? Is it like, what kinds of things do you see your role as?
My role as Senior Director of Clinical Services is has many different aspects to it. I think there's a piece, there's obviously a part of day-to-day operational oversight. There's also leading large improvement projects, process improvement, observing the clinical service line for any opportunities for improvement, working with the improvement team, and then at the same time supporting the leaders and the clinical teams under my oversight and ensuring that they're developing and that they're learning and growing and have the tools that they need to do their work.
Cool. And Ava, how about you? As a clinical manager, how do you see your role?
As a clinical manager, I see my role as having many layers. I think that we do work on the day-to-day operations on a more local level, checking in with staff development, financial responsibilities, talent development, as well as any compliance or safety risk issues that are happening on the unit level with our patients and our staff.
Very cool. I always wonder, like, we're in improvement, right? And so, just as an aside, we're in improvement, and so everything, our world, like our entire lens is improvement related. And I always wonder how much of other people's world is improvement, or is it just because like we happen to be around that they're talking about improvement? And so, this question was for me. And so.
Let me know who you're going to ask the question to so I can get set
Okay.
before you ask it.
We'll start with Jonathan.
Thank you.
And so this is the story that I want to make sure that we're getting between like how you, Jonathan, prep your day and make sure that you are there to be able to help support your team in what you just said your job was, and then interplay. And if you guys want to chat, that's fine. If you guys just want to answer one question and then we'll move on, that's fine too. And we'll do the same thing. But we want to hear how they fit together. So so the question again is regarding getting all of your teams running smoothly and supporting your teams. Can you walk us through your typical day of how you make that happen?
Certainly. My typical day, I think I'll start by saying I'm a big fan of standard work and lean process, but I generally advise people you have to also build standard work that's meaningful and that leaves room for flexibility and the ability to pivot, and caution folks to not over-engineer their standard work. Really step back and say, if we're having 3 huddles in the morning, are all 3 huddles adding value? Or are we just doing 3 huddles because that's what a lean process looks like? So encouraging people to step back and do what's right for their area. So my standard work is really specific to the needs of my team, and what I need to accomplish in the morning with them, knowing that I have a varied portfolio of areas because I have not only the units inside the hospital that are medicine, but I also have oversight of the clinical trials program and the clinical trials team that float around the hospital to support clinical research. And I also have an offsite location at Sequoia. So I have to keep those things into account, knowing my teams are kind of in different locations. So looking at my actual daily standard work, I really try to have as much information as I can before I actually arrive to work. One of the ways we do that is very common in inpatient is each team has a team thread. So as the morning progresses, my team members, which are my PCMs, I also have an NPDS on my team, they all text their report outs into our thread. So
Can I pause you really quick? Can you repeat that with actually saying the words? Most people aren't going to know what PCM is.
Oh,
and
sure.
what you call it.
Sure. Okay. Where did I go?
Thread. We have threads.
Oh yeah. So it's very typical. It's very typical in culture in the inpatient setting that each team has a team thread. So each morning, my team members, as my morning is progressing, each the patient care managers, and I do have a nursing professional development specialist on my team. They're all texting their report out updates to me in terms of quality, safety, any staffing challenges, and other standard report out items that we've established in the inpatient setting. While that's going on, I am fortunate that I usually take the train into work. So while I'm actually on the train, I spend that time to look at my safe reports that are compiled each day by nursing quality. I also look at our capacity level, throughput challenges, any kind of safety events that were reported out in the thread. And I review all of that information and ask any clarifying questions to my team so that I have all of that information before I arrive to the hospital. And actually, the first thing I usually do after I arrive at the hospital is sign into our capacity patient flow huddle each morning. So now I have all of that information ready so that I can support my teams at that first huddle. And from there, we do attend. I attend a morning huddle with our chief nursing officer and associate chief nursing officers and the other senior directors, where we actually converse about any potential safety challenges and discuss any way that we can support one another for the day and actually address any time-sensitive issues that are bubbling up. And then after our inpatient senior leadership huddle, then I go out to the units. And that's when I engage with the managers sometimes, but really my focus on the units is engaging with the charge nurses because I want to give them capacity updates. I want to talk to them about are they having challenges getting patients discharged, anything with throughput. We talk about all the standard hospital-acquired infections and conditions, any risk or injury information for the team. One thing I specifically do, however, is I always ask the charge nurse on each unit, is there anything or anyone in the unit that you're particularly concerned about in any way? And that really gives me the opportunity to find out to get them talking about anything that might be happening on the unit that they might not have the language for, but it gives me a thread to pull on if I hear something, I can say, well, tell me a little bit more about that. What about that is concerning to you? What's going on with that patient or that situation? And it sometimes gives them the platform to talk more about it and give me the opportunity to lean in and actually provide some support to them. So that's really the core. And I also engage with the managers in general to say, what are the big initiatives that you're working on in your areas right now? Is there something you would like me to discuss with your teams to reinforce this initiative or get more information during my rounds? There really is a collaborative effort. And so each unit that I go to, sometimes the questions aren't identical because what is a big initiative on one unit may be a little different than on the next. So I do try to tailor it to, in addition to the standard questions, what else can I support them with? What else can I really promote and bolster the manager's emphasis on that program or initiative? And I know in medicine right now, central line associated bloodstream infections are a big initiative, so that's something that we talk about a lot.
Thank you. And Ava, same question to you. What is regarding how do you help your unit run smoothly and support your team? Can you walk us through your day as you do that?
In order to support my team and ensure that unit operations are running smoothly, my day would typically start pretty early on. As we all know, nursing is a 24-hour operation, and oftentimes we don't get to see the vital members of the night shift. And so I like to touch in with the night shift staff, particularly the charge nurses, and engage with them in just conversation, highlighting any escalations that may have happened overnight, any concerns or behaviors from either patients, staff that need to be reported to me so that I in turn can report them to Jonathan and upper leadership if it's appropriate or applicable. And then from there, just looking at our active daily management, I like to over-narrate what our goals are so that everybody at the nurses station, because typically it's a little more quiet at night, they're able to hear the discussions that I have with the charge nurses on what is important. So it doesn't just end at the charge nurses, but essentially it's a downstream effect for our newcomers, those who aspire to be charge nurses, that these are the important things that the managers are looking at once our team comes in. From there, I like to hear about what the census is. As I mentioned, any escalations, patient flow. I expect that they're able to tell me what the capacity level is so that I know they have thought about what their priorities are to endorse to the day shift. And then from there, if there were any particular issues that did arise overnight, I communicate with my assistant patient care manager to see how we can divide and conquer should there be any competing priorities. All of this is mainly held at the nurses station so that people can hear, they see, transparency about what is important to us, and they have a better understanding of the why. From there, day shift comes on, and we conduct a morning huddle. It happens twice a day, but since we're starting from night, it approximately happens at 6:45 a.m., where I ask that all members of the team are present, both days and nights, so that we all are a unified front and that nobody is missing pertinent information, especially if there's any safety concerns, behavioral challenges overnight, so that everybody knows who to look out for, who is a potential fall risk, a safety concern, or a hot spot that may have been an acute situation. After the huddle, our team does bedside report, and I'm typically at the nurses station while they're doing that, so I can also kind of hear what's going on and also see that certain processes that we have started to implement or initiate are actually being carried out. Simultaneously, my assistant manager is involved in report out between the charge nurses of both days and nights so that she gets a higher overview of what is happening. During the report out, we're also looking at our nursing quality dashboard. So we're able to look at our high-risk happy patients, our fall risk patients, our patients with lines, catheters, etc. And those are also mentioned in the huddle as well, just so that everybody also knows, because there are certain initiatives that we are having to execute to prevent any type of hospital-acquired injury. From there, we talk about throughput and see if there's any opportunity to discharge certain patients in a safe manner prior to noon. We try to push 11 so that if we miss the mark at 11, we're shooting at least till 12. And then addressing any interdepartmental crises that may have arose overnight, whether it's facilities, anything that happens with our rooms, leaks, if that were to occur. And then from there, I reported out to Jonathan in the thread where all the other patient care managers are, so that we can align with what is happening, and he has an overall sense of what is going on each unit, specifically mine. And then after that, we also celebrate very early on just certain things that are going on that have been working out well. We revisit a lot of goals, especially if it's like the end of the month, where we're highlighting how many days it's been since we've had something not occur. And so it's an opportunity to end things on a good note. And so that's what my day looks like as a patient care manager.
Amazing. What time do you, just out of curiosity, what time do you get in the morning, and then what time do you go home?
So it depends. I like to get in before 6 a.m. and then I try to leave around 2:30, 3 o'clock. If there are later meetings in the day, I'll have to flex my schedule so that I can attend those meetings. But regardless, I do have a 10-hour assistant patient care manager who also starts at around 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, and she does a 10-hour shift. My evening assistant manager comes on around 1 p.m. and she leaves at 11 p.m. So there's a lot of oversight and over communication with our team.
Amazing. And so you talked a lot about how you make sure that you're getting ready for the day. What about other are there other aspects of leader standard work, other pieces that you do on a recurring basis that aren't necessarily about getting ready for the day? Should we start with Jonathan? Start with Jonathan. The things that aren't necessarily associated with getting ready for the day, but other things that you're doing on a recurring basis to make sure that well, maybe I'll start. So, like, as leaders, we're all working on building our teams. So I think the first piece to this is what kind of culture are you working on building within each of your teams? I mean, like all of your teams together.
I think in terms of culture, I really want to promote, number one, a culture of safety, where people have the platform and the communication pathways to be able to escalate concerns quickly. I want my team to know that they have access to me if there is something urgent. It's one of the reasons I do dedicate that hour every day to round in the units. Some of the other, aside from getting ready for the day, some of the other recurring activities that we have on a more regular basis are one-to-ones with my each member of my team at least every 2 weeks, so that they have time we can review all of their unit data together to identify any trends or any opportunities for improvement. It also gives them a space where they know if something's not urgent or time sensitive, they know they're going to have that time with me, so they can save it. and we can have a time to discuss the things that that need to be addressed, but maybe don't need to be addressed right away. So it gives them the option to know that they can create an agenda that we can then talk about together. I do regularly go onto the units and actually do safety rounds with the manager and sometimes the assistant manager and the clinical nurses. And we really focus that time on identifying any high-risk patients. We use that time to provide education, again, really working shoulder to shoulder with the managers to reinforce what is important in terms of keeping our patients safe, promoting our initiatives, and progressing our goals. We use that opportunity to really educate the nurses and really support their clinical learning. We'll go into rooms together to look at a central line dressing to say, let's talk about this dressing. What do you see? And this is what I see. This is how we can actually make this better, as an example. So we do the clinical rounding. I do offsite rounding at Sequoia. So it is an offsite unit, but I want to make sure that they have leadership presence there and that they receive the same support as the other inpatient medicine units. So typically every Friday, I spend my day there and I do rounding the managers, the nurses, really talking to all the interdisciplinary team members there to find out what's working well and what's not, and really just being available to them to ask questions. We also do our CI Care rounding. We activated Sequoia as a site recently in the past 6 months. So I typically do my CI Care rounding there to promote patient experience and really, again, just to really mirror what's happening at the Palo Alto campus at the Sequoia campus. So those are some of the activities that I engage in regularly and really attempt to see night shift at least once a quarter. I'll stay late and actually round on the unit just to introduce myself and find out if there are any concerns in the unit, just to have some night shift presence as well.
So cool. There's so many places where I'm like, ooh, it ties into that.
Make sure this is still, still going.
Ava, same thing for you. What, like, you have your unit, which is like pretty big. So what is it? What are you working on to be able to help build within your unit? What kind of culture?
So the culture that I'm looking to build within my unit is a culture of accountability, a culture of care, where my end goal is to create a mentality where work is a sense of not obligation, but a sense of pride. And so how I feel that I try to foster that or be a proponent to it is really getting everybody engaged. I try to be very transparent with all the goals. I, as well as my assistant patient care managers, really get everybody involved. And when I mean everybody, is not just the nurses, it's also our unit secretaries, it is our nursing assistants, because they're all part of this continuum. And sometimes they may not see it for themselves. So to really draw them in, it really allows them to see, hey, I actually have a huge part in this role and in this team and our goals that we're working towards. I think that just really having open communication about what is happening and why it's happening is something that's been really important for the team to see something start from the beginning to the end and help them figure out why this is something that we need to have movement on. So socializing those things very early on is what has been successful thus far on my team. And then also, if there is a consult or another member from a different department who is coming to round with the manager or my assistant managers, I always bring them to the nurses station front and center for everybody to see what we're doing. I pull other team members in to be a part of the conversation where I actually ask them to speak to these consultants as they are the experts on the floor, knowing firsthand what's going on. And then lastly, to see how everything is received by both our patients and our staff, all the A3s, all our initiatives. How does that look like from the perception of a patient is really important, and doing rounds on the unit with patients, whether it's myself or the assistant care manager, that's been really big to find out how it's looking and how it's translating. And then additionally, doing staff rounds as well, daily, just to see how everybody's feeling that day, some concerns, areas of opportunity, because those are the people behind the work. So I want to make sure that they're doing well additionally. And then what we really like to hone in on almost a quarter, we try to do this quarterly, is having one-to-one staff check-ins. Just a very candid conversation where we allow them to feel heard, feel safe. Sometimes they're a little reserved in the beginning, but they see that this is a consistent process and that we care. And then we find more and more that they're opening up. We also take notes. Our assistant managers take notes on what's being told to us, so that in the event that we're revisiting something or following up on a concern that they brought forward perhaps a few months ago, we're checking in again to see how they're actually doing and has it resolved? How are they feeling now? And so I guess, taking care of both the patients and the staff is something that starts with our leadership team. And I see that it is also very important and kind of transcends to how the staff take care of the patients as well as each other when we're not around.
Yeah, I love that you talked about rounding and the engagement with the clinical nurses. It's also something that I think is really important about the rounding experience is you spend time with the clinical nurses, and it gives me the opportunity to sometimes explain the bigger picture and the why to why some of these initiatives are important, and kind of helping them to take a step back to see the bigger picture and how their work actually contributes to the initiatives that we're running at a larger scale. It also gives me the opportunity sometimes if I'm working on a bigger improvement project that's going to impact the work of people. I'll say the frontline clinicians, because sometimes it's not just nurses.
Yeah.
But it gives me the opportunity sometimes on rounds to actually pull somebody aside and say, "Can you walk me through this process? I want to understand it better, so that when I represent you at this larger meeting, I can actually fully understand what it takes for you to accomplish this." So I think there's so many things that we can accomplish in rounds, and you touching on like the importance of connecting clinical team members to the work that's going on, I think is super important.
I love how intentional you are.
Thanks.
So what's nice is we've got the two right people in the seats today. It's really, really good. You guys are fantastic.
Not that I would want to be a patient, but I would want to be a patient.
Yes, I would probably say you'd want to be a patient on my unit too.
How are we doing? How are you all on time?
What time is it?
10:15.
Oh yeah, I have a moment.
Okay, good.
I'm good until 10:30. Yeah, and I think it's also we're talking as we talk about our respective standard works. So much of it happens simultaneously, and we kind of weave in and out and connect through the day. And I think those are really the connections through the day, or even through the morning. I think are the points that add a lot of value, because when we do connect and we do communicate, there's something important to share or communicate, or for me it's equipping the charge nurses and the managers with the information they need on how they can be the most effective to mitigate whatever challenge is presenting for that day, because it does change day to day, especially with like throughput and capacity. So those touch points where our standard works overlap are really, I think, the most important parts.
Yeah, and I think it also builds this expectation from the staff themselves that there's a lot of follow through that goes on. It's not just something that's going to be started and just falls by the wayside. So when Jonathan comes by and he kind of messages the same thing that the nurses from the night shift or staff from the night shift have escalated to me, to then them actually hear and see that my boss has been made aware, you're following up, making sure that they're okay. They know it's not just going nowhere. And so it really builds the confidence and trust for our team. And then with that, they're also able to see that our work is not just something that the unit managers are just making up. This is something that's a part of, the bigger picture. So that always really reinforces it whenever you come by and ask.
That's great. I'm so thankful of team members that can step away from their work for a few minutes and really walk me through some of those projects or those epic related documentation items that I don't fully understand. So I do also use that opportunity to, if a nurse or another team member spends time with me, I generally will write thank you cards and actually leave them with the manager so they can, then just so the team members know that them taking a few minutes to talk to me is so highly appreciated, and to let them know that their work is really impactful.
Yeah. Oftentimes when Jonathan comes by the unit, they're just telling him things without him even asking. So he's built that relationship with them, and that's been something that's very unique for the frontline staff, to have somebody higher than local leadership.
So cool. As an aside, one thing that I when I was at a previous organization, and I was in a similar role to what I'm in, but I kind of did this little temporary assignment in lab, and I got to pretend to be a manager. Minus all of the hard work, I got all the fun work. And so I got to spend time with all of the frontline and just watch them and shadow them. And a couple of them commented and said it was so valuable, so important for them to have me take that time to watch and see what they were doing, where their director at the time, you could see, he came in and he needed to go to Gemba, right? And so he would come in, but he felt very uncomfortable, and you could see he didn't want to touch anything, didn't know how to interact. And so that connection that you're making is absolutely incredible.
And I considered at one point, when we talk about standard work, there's such a focus on capacity and throughput as we need to have. But going back to making sure it's meaningful, and I thought about at one point, should I add, another huddle in the morning where we all just talk about capacity and throughput? And when I really took a step back and looked at it, between all the communication strategies we have implemented currently, I'm actually receiving all the information I need in the morning. So adding that extra huddle, while sometimes I feel like we want to do something, I think it was a moment where I just stepped back and said, is that going to actually add the value I want it to add? And ultimately, I think that spending that time rounding in the units added more value, because the people that are actually, to Ava's point, impacting the work directly, those are the people that I'm interacting with and actually helping to support. So that's just an example of, sometimes I love lean and I love standard work, and you want to do something like that, and that's just an example of where in that moment that wouldn't have added the value I wanted it to add.
Yeah, I think Jonathan does a really good job stepping back and not just asking us all the questions up front, but really prompting our minds to really think about the type of things that he would want to know about. And if there is an area of opportunity and he does need to hone in a little bit more, he's very focused and pointed. And so that is something that we also try to do with our charge nurses, my assistant patient care managers, because ultimately this is also a form of succession planning. And being able to have them understand what we're doing versus transactional conversations is really, really a big, it's a really big deal for them to understand the big picture. And so Jonathan allowing us to do that, I think really makes a difference. And I think you can see it when you come to the floor. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's really interesting. when I'm picking up, I'll start over here with Jonathan. I can see your values. What? Okay. I can see your values, both of you. You have your own internal value sets that you're behaving on, your behaviors that you're bringing to your people. And in turn, those are beginning to cycle through and influencing others. And I'm seeing the culture being created in real time, just listening to your stories. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I think in terms of values, I think we all learn from each other. So as much as the managers might be learning from me, I learn a lot from them and how they approach situations. How Ava approaches a situation might be different than another manager. And so, I thank them a lot just for helping me to learn how to be a better leader by listening to and watching the ways that they address their own individual situations and change management strategies and how they the ways in which they hold their teams accountable to their commitments. I think is unique, so I learn from them each day. I think at my core I do value deep relationships. I value deep understanding of what the teams are working on, and I want to, not that I'm going to be the expert in the clinical care anymore in this role. I fully acknowledge I'm not the clinical expert anymore, but I need to understand enough detail so that I know the right questions to ask. And I really want to make sure that the managers know that their work is important, and the people that are actually providing the care and the direct contact with patients. It's important to me that they understand how important their contribution to the work is. And those are really the core of what I try to drive in my teams. I think those are the most important things that I try to center all of the other qualities around in terms of culture.
Can you repeat the question?
Well, I was just, I noticed that I can see your own personal values coming through in your behaviors with your people, which in turn stimulates, creates the culture which you have now.
Yeah. I think it's very simple, treat people with kindness and respect. There's people behind the work. And so I found that if you get to the core to have people feel seen and heard, and sometimes they have comparables of what they've had in the past. Oftentimes these are nurse residents or people's first time jobs. So really empowering them to understand that there is structure. They hold my feet to the fire, I hold their feet to the fire. My door is constantly open. I dress in clinical attire so that in the event that there is a situation that does happen on the unit that they need an extra set of hands, they also see that their managers are right there. Not necessarily jumping in unless we notice that it's an unsafe situation and action is warranted, but otherwise we're essentially air traffic control so that we ensure that we are facilitating the right things. And so I think as long as it starts and ends with the people, you are going to see amazing results. And we try to extend that to everyone, whether you're a part of our team, a patient family member, a patient, dietary, housekeeping. This is all part of the continuum. And so when those people are rounding or coming back to our floor, they have also made relationships with our teams. And so even if we have a simple celebration, those individuals are also welcome. So those are the things that we really hope to impart, that I try to emulate. I try to model for our team. And, I think it really goes a long way for those working on Unit C3.
And it's important, I think it's also important that they know that if they have a concern, in the same thread of everything that we've discussed, I think it's important that they understand that if they have a concern, then I'll be concerned about the same thing. Because if they're concerned or feel like something's a safety issue, we're going to talk it through, because I want to take those things seriously. And I think Ava does a great job also of escalating things to me that her team members are concerned about and think is important, so that we can address it in a timely way.
Yeah. And I think just always circling back, whether or not I have an answer to what their concern is, if it's something that can't be resolved in that moment, at least circling back lets them know that it hasn't been forgotten. We're still thinking about it, and just letting them know, hold on, just wait a few more moments where this is important to us, and I just want to make sure we're getting the right people involved, and so that it's not just a reactive response. So, yeah.
On a different direction, so you've talked about a lot about your own own leader standard work.
Mm-hmm.
Your teams have standard work, and so how do you see? I think Ava will direct this at you. How do you see your role in supporting your team in holding their standard work?
So I feel that I find myself holding my team and supporting them to their standard work by, number one, letting them know what the expectations are. If people are moving blindly, everyone's going to go in different directions. And so constantly reiterating in a very clear, concise, non-wordy way what our goals are is something that I start off with. I also let them know what they are accountable for and what we're working towards in terms of unit goals and organizational goals. From there are certain interventions or resources and tools that we have created on our unit that they're constantly seeing, both on day shift and night shift, that do require completion to ensure that it's done. And in the event that there is an opportunity where there wasn't completion, we simply ask, hey, I noticed that this wasn't done. I'm sure it was a really busy night or day. Can you explain to me a little bit what's going on with this patient? From there, they understand that we are following up on these tools and they're not just pointless tools. Typically, we don't have to have that conversation again. Additionally, a lot of the work is being led by the charge nurses. They are our resource to the unit. They are the extension of leadership on the weekends, on holidays, and so really empowering them to understand and lead the pack for what's going on for the latest and greatest is something that we've learned to get those individuals as well as our shared leadership teams a part of to champion. And so we do have a lot of standard work around our, active daily management, our weekly management, our monthly management. And then after that, we actually publicize or we publish, where our fallouts are, areas that we've done really great. So it's not just areas of opportunity, but also our celebrations. And so it's really nice for the team to see all their hard work come to fruition, as evidenced by, hospital-acquired injuries, patient satisfaction, staff satisfaction surveys that we also put out on the unit with our visual board displays.
For your active or your active daily management, your weekly management, your you said monthly management, do you have like a visual or a list or something that you're tracking to?
Yeah.
And is that on your board or is it on a computer?
So I, in terms of my active daily management, my weekly and my monthly, our team has access to all of the roles and responsibilities of each leadership team member. And so oftentimes, a nurse or a nursing assistant, a unit secretary may not know what a charge nurse is responsible for. So we would imagine that the charge nurse wouldn't know what leadership is responsible for. And so we did have it laid out. I've been doing leadership for quite some time and I haven't had that much change in my current team. And so outside our doors are our responsibilities so that they also know who they can approach for certain things in the event that someone's unavailable. Ultimately, I am the keeper of all keys, so the manager I'm expected to understand every individual's role. But also in the event that I'm in a meeting or a pressing situation, they also know who they can utilize if it isn't the charge nurse. So everything is displayed for the team.
Sorry, I'm just text.
We can do that.
Yeah.
I was thinking B-roll or something, listening to what you're saying.
I know. Like, we want
B-roll's
some
like a good background video.
pictures and video
Oh,
to
yeah.
be able to,
For
to
sure.
be able to show exactly what you're
Oops.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I just have to let these people know I'm going to be late.
Okay.
You think metric? You think we've already talked about
I
metrics?
have a meeting.
I think so. I think
Okay.
we should probably begin wrapping up.
Okay, and then reliability.
I think one thing I haven't heard yet is high reliability.
Yeah. Can we ask one last question?
Yeah. Just
Who do you want to start with? Well, Jonathan's, take care of business,
Well,
Jonathan.
I'm just letting them know I'm going to be late to my next meeting. Okay. I have 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay. So one thing that we want to make sure that we're doing across the organization, and that's in the new ISP to like an ops plan, is around high reliability. And so, can you talk to us a little bit about how your leader standard work contributes to building high reliability?
I think when we talk about high reliability, I think the standard work that we have in place and the questions that we're engaging with our team members are really promoting them to talk about what are the things going well, what are the things that maybe are not going well, and then how are we following up with those items. I always start with the assumption that everyone wants to come to their role and add value. I don't believe that anybody comes to their role and intends to make mistakes or do harm to anyone or make clinical errors. So I think from that perspective, the first step is if there is something that went wrong or didn't go well, the first step is to really understand what was the systemic influence in that situation that contributed to the error or the thing that didn't go well. And then from there, we can then identify the gap and either supplement with training, change a system, modify policy, before we start going down the road of blaming someone for human error. We need to look at the systemic influences of those situations. And I think the standard work in, like Ava was talking about with rounding and engaging with the teams provides that communication point so that we can make those problems visible and then learn from the team members directly engaged with that work.
On my unit, in terms of reliability, we really look at how we essentially are going to sustain this for the long term. And if we have met goal, we also try to think about how do we kind of reinvigorate these individuals' thoughts so that they don't become complacent. They don't think that this is still a goal in the background that we're hoping to continue. And so really being able to hone in on the visibility portion of where we're currently at, how many days it's been since we've had a certain incident happen, and then providing the data behind it is really an objective way for the team to see, the proof is in the pudding. This is everything that we've put forward in our interventions, and so far, so good. And I think it's a nice way to highlight, as Jonathan mentioned, areas of opportunity. We always try to remember hard on the process and not on the people. It's something that I learned on very early on in my leadership journey, and ultimately collaborate with my APCMs, my nurse educator, some frontline staff, and our unit-based medical director, who's also involved in a lot of our projects. And then from there, celebrating our goals, or celebrating our small wins, and then continuing to celebrate them, even if we've surpassed goals, or going back to the drawing board and not looking at it in a punitive manner, but just keeping us honest.
Cool.
Fantastic. We should get you not to sleep more often.
I think the propranolol was fantastic. I have to tell my doctor. I was like, my heart rate was fine, I think. But
You guys
thank
did
you.
really, really, really good.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad we could